Just to acknowledge some of our electeds that are here in the House with us this morning. Thank you for being here. I'm going to start with some of our local electeds that I saw this morning. I know School Board Director Gloria Reyes from Madison just joined us. She's right there in the back. City of Madison Alderman Shiva Badar is here in the House. Alderwoman Julia Arata Frata off the campaign trail is joining us from Fitchburg. Thank you, Alderwoman Arata Frata. Any other local electeds I'm missing? Yes, of course. City of Madison Alder and wonderful staff, leadership staffer, Arvina Martin. Alder Arvina Martin. Thank you, Arvina. Yes, I didn't get to write down your name. Tanya Buckingham of the Dane County Board of Supervisors. Thank you, Tanya, for being here. And then some of my colleagues from the Wisconsin State Legislature are here. Representative Melissa Sargent. Happy birthday, Representative Sargent. Senator Mark Miller is here from Madison. Thank you, Senator Miller, for being here. Co-chair of the Black and Latino Caucus, chair of the Legislative Black Caucus, Representative David Crowley is here from Milwaukee. And of course, one of our newest freshman legislators here, Representative Jody Emerson from Eau Claire. And also got to give a shout out to our musicians this morning who came here from Milwaukee, from my district. Gracias to Mariachi Zamora, joining us from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Gracias. Okay, and with that, I need to give the mic to somebody who worked and fought shoulder to shoulder with Cesar Chavez. I'm so honored to say that this man has supported me from the beginning of my entrance into politics. He is a staunch fighter for civil rights, for worker rights, for immigrant rights. Thank you so much, Jesus Salas, for making the drive here today to be with us. Jesus Salas.
Thank you very much, Jocasta. Thank you, Assemblypersons Cabrera, Samarita, and Anderson for the invitation. And it's an honor to have you here, Governor Anders. Thank you very much for your presence. The celebration of Cesar Chavez is, first of all, a celebration of farm workers, both migrant, seasonal, and immigrants. And I say that because of the long history of contribution of migrant workers over the last 100 years in the state of Wisconsin. There are certain legislators that still don't realize the contributions that we have made over the years. They treat us as internal forces. They just arrived. And of course, the rhetoric from President Trumpudo is just as toxic, right? Calling our persons engaged in addition to all the experiences that he refers to. But it's important that we recognize the long contribution of migrant and immigrants here in the state of Wisconsin. Professor Sergio Gonzalez, in his recent public book, Mexicans in Wisconsin, notes the vibrant Mexican community in the Walker Points area at the turn of the century, and we honor those individuals. We call them los primeros, the first ones. That is those that first populated the Walker Point neighborhood. And if you ever go to Fiesta Mexicana and you have an opportunity to visit the cultural tent, we have the names of those original families Mexican families, Latino families who first settled our barrio. But it is really the Great Depression that really dislocates that whole settlement process. My grandfather had come over to the United States in 1906 as a mediero, and that is as a sharecropper, hoping that his contribution in the clearing of the land would eventually end up with our family having access to land holdings, and of course the Great Depression just threw those plans out. And he joined the migrant stream, and before he passed, he showed my grandfather how to get to the Great Lakes region and eventually to Wisconsin. So my grandparents came to Wisconsin in the 40s when there was this tremendous recruitment of Texas borderland migrants and immigrants across the border to come in and assist the United States in filling that vacuum of workforce in the factories and in the fields. My second oldest brother, Carlos Teofilo, was born in Hartford, Wisconsin during this period of time in 1942. And it's interesting to note, we're talking about the Second World War, that my father's younger brother, Julian, signs up for the Selective Service while he's working hoeing and thinning sugar beets west of the Kettle Moraine area. And he signs up in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin for the Selective Service, and he gets a letter from the Selective Service, and it's directed to his home address in Crystal City, Texas. So the whole family then returns to Crystal City, hoping to respond to the Selective Services. No, you signed up in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, you go with the Red Arrow Division, so that my uncle passes his days during the Second World War with the Red Arrow Division and lands in the occupation of Japan just a little bit. And I mention that because Cesar Chavez was a veteran. He volunteered to join the Navy, and this was a time when not only our society was segregated, but our military was segregated. It isn't until after the Second World War that President Truman, through an executive order, desegregates it. But I remember my uncle telling me there was some individuals who said you don't have to salute Mexicans, you don't have to salute black officers. That kind of thing was going on, and figure out that contradiction, fighting for your country and facing that also. But the migration that begins in the 1940s accelerates, and we make a treaty with the United States to help us, with Mexico, to help us send guest workers, or what we call braceros. And they were supposed to be sent just during the war years, but even as late as the 60s, there's hundreds of thousands of them coming. Many of them organized the National Farm Workers Association, that we actually see for the first time a successful attempt to organize farm workers. So we recognize Dolores Huerta and Cesar Chavez for their attempt to establish a foothold in the industry and show us how to organize the Farm Workers Union. I was here in Madison in 1965 during the Delano to Sacramento march, and somebody brought a newspaper and said, "You used to be a migrant farm worker. Look what the farm workers are doing in California." And we had been working here in the state of Wisconsin. We established the first daycare centers, migrant education centers in 1962. The Elementary and Secondary Act provided additional funds for that effort. UMass is funded in 1965. The Institute for Poverty that I worked for, guided by Professor Brandeis, told us that in spite of all these activities that we were undertaking here in the state of Wisconsin, half of the labor camps that were housing over 15,000 workers who used to go uninspected, and their wage, deplorable wages, minimum wage violations, migrant housing codes that went uninspected. So I went back from Madison to Watauga this time, not to work in these programs that we had started to establish in the early 60s, but to organize farm workers, man. And I called Cesar Chavez on the phone. At that time, some of you youngsters might be surprised to hear that there used to be telephone operators in the phone system. And I said, I want to talk person to person with Cesar. I'd never met him before in my life. And they found him. And I said, Cesar, we want to use your Thunderbird, the Aztec symbol. We want to use it because we want to do what you were doing in your march from the land of Sacramento. He says, Jesus, so go ahead and do it there. So we just started a boycott because we think that the only way that we can get the grape growers to come to the negotiating table is through a great boycott. And I just sent a volunteer to Chicago. I'll send them up to your march, and so you can have some help. So to make a long story short, we marched that year. We went out on strike in the potato processing industry. That's the following year. We went after the multinationals. Oregon Commission ordered the first election of farm workers in the state of Wisconsin. And out of 413 votes, we won 405 to 8. Those 8 we thought were a mistake. We had a unanimous support for the farm workers union here in the state of Wisconsin. But Libby McNeil wouldn't negotiate. So the following year, we had walkouts in 3 of Libby McNeil processing plants to try to force them back to the negotiating table. Meanwhile, I had been to the Delano Chavez. I invited Chavez. He had been here to Milwaukee. Both of his vice presidents, Antonio Rendain and Gilberto Padilla, had already visited here promoting the great boycott. And Chavez says, look, Salas, you're never going to deal with Libby. If you help me with the great boycott, I'll help, and we win in California, I'll help you win here in Wisconsin. And I don't know why I believed him, but I believed him. I didn't know at the time, and he didn't know either, that it would take us 5 years of boycotting grapes before we would gain our first union contract, but we did it. We succeeded. And of course, I moved to Milwaukee to organize the grape boycott, and we moved there in the summer after field operations in 1968. And what was going on in Milwaukee at the time? 200 days of marches for open housing ordinance. And of course, the city of Milwaukee never gave the African American community who were suffering from hyper segregation that ordinance. It wasn't until Martin Luther King Jr. is assassinated that the civil rights law that includes a provision for open housing is passed that Milwaukee complies. So that when we get into Milwaukee in 1968, the freeways and the ordinance for open housing and the impending desegregation of the storefronts were boarded up, and you should see what that community looks like now with our effort. It wasn't the effort of one individual or one organization, but you can travel anywhere in the United States, and this is really the contribution of Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta, because even before they organized a union, first they worked for the Community Service Organization, and then they spent 3 years creating health organizations, creating a credit union, creating voter registration and voter education. Most people don't realize that all this was done before the union was established, before the farm workers supported the Filipino-led grape stock. But that was the idea of organizing, all right? It was building a sustainable community.